Amazing. Good morning or good afternoon, depending on where y'all are joining from. Happy Clue Thursday. It's the best day of the week. We're not going to take too long to get into it. I'm just going to make sure that we're recording, but we have a good one today. So yeah, 10 on the dot. Josh, Nick, let's get into it. So, again, welcome to Clue Thursday. My name is Madeline Sherry. Joined today by our customer success lead, Josh, and our account executive, Nick. Today's session is covering work orders from start to finish. So, how a job goes from its first report to a closed record. So, your question to, oh, I'm hearing that I'm echoing. Thank you. I'm gonna just power through it, maybe see if that makes it better. Cross my fingers. Thanks, Nick. Um, so, question I want everyone to sit with while we're going through the live demo today is if I were to ask you what your last 10 repairs actually costed, what would the number be? Not a rough number, an actual number. So most teams that answer lives in a text message or someone's memory or sticky note, which is not the right place for it to live. So we're going to build a work order from scratch today, start to finish, close it out like we said. So by the end, you're going to know exactly when and how to use every piece of it. As usual, this session is going to be recorded. Drop any questions you have in the chat as we go. We'll save designated time for Q&A at the end, but without further ado, Josh and Nick, let's get into it.
Thanks, Madeline. Really appreciate it. And I'm looking at the attendee list and just I love working with all of you. That's all I have to say. So let's get into it here. Looking forward to questions and we'll go from there. All right. So just kind of getting started here. Got 6 stops on our agenda today and not going to bore you with a bunch of slides, but this is what we're looking at. We're going to talk about what a work order actually is, creating one end to end, scheduling it, everything that's inside the record of the work order, the statuses that just move it along, and the history that proves what happened. So that's it, contextualized. We're going to crank through this really quickly. There's a lot to cover, all right? So the big thing that is the problem here is you all, guys and gals, are in it every single day. I get on these calls with you and I'm watching you. And first of all, I appreciate the time that you spend with me. But I know that your crews and your teams are in it and they're trying to stay on top of things. You have upper management that's asking you why that machine is down, asking you, are you doing preventative maintenance on this stuff? What's the history on it? Asking you about your cost history on these pieces. How much did it cost you to do that? Are we burning through cash too much on that asset? It's time to flip it. So your work order is the context where the actual work is happening. It's where all of the information around the request that came in from the field, the scheduling to the mechanic is being done, how the categorization takes place. It's really like the center of the universe around this specific thing of this work that we're doing, right? And so when it comes to the work order, we at Clue, we've spent a lot of energy, a lot of time trying to get this work order to be that center of the universe so that you can see who worked on it, how many hours did they put into it, what parts came off the shelf, and really what did the whole thing cost you? And of course, there's a whole lot of other nuance there, all right? So our demo today, we're going to start out with that anatomy of the work order, go through that creation, the scheduling, get inside the record, look at those details, statuses, and the activity and history. So let's flip over. All right. So first of all, I'm demoing today out of our beta platform, which is going live next week. Very excited about that. So if you're looking at this and you're like, this doesn't look like Clue, it is. And it'll be what you're running full time here, coming pretty quickly. So make sure that if you haven't yet, you get over and you try the beta version of Clue so that you see what's coming. Okay. So here on the left, of course, under the maintenance section, we have our work orders area. And the very first thing I just want to kind of go through is talking about the different kinds of work orders. So here in the upper right, next to the new work order button, we have this little drop down. There's 3 different work order types that we have. We have an asset work order, and this is a work order that puts all of the information and associates it to the asset. So when you're thinking about your standard repair work, your preventative maintenance work, everything that needs to be tracked against an asset, that's the type of work order that you want to use is that asset work order. Now, a project work order is different, and we're not going to spend a whole lot of time on project work orders today. But project work orders are intended to be ways to put work and schedule work for your teams that needs to be assigned to a project rather than an asset. Think situations like you need to send a welder out on a project and they need to weld up a hole in the Connex box or a frame for this part of the project, or you got some just general maintenance on site that needs to happen. You're not billing the time or the work to a specific asset. That's what your project work orders for. Another way that I see customers use project work orders is for tracking shop time. So oftentimes we'll see somebody create a shop work order and then log time against that work order. So all of that information goes there. And this makes it really easy to manage your time cards in a centralized place and then also export that information for time over to your ERP. So asset work orders, that's where we're spending most of our time today because we want to talk about the asset work. And then project work orders, really cool side option for you to use so you can associate time to a project. The bulk asset repair is that third option. We'll get into that here just a little bit more in a second. But what it does is it allows you to assign multiple assets to the same type of work. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and start with pulling up this asset work order option if I were going to create one. And let's just talk through some of the basics here, right? So we've got our asset that needs to be associated to it, your work order title, your work order type, and your description. These are the must-haves in order to create a work order, right? So you pick your asset, you put in a very brief example title of what the work order is, and then you can put in a detailed description that gives you a whole lot more context as to what needs to be done, right? So I'll show you exactly how to do that here in a second. But first, I want to talk about work order types, right? So we've talked about the kinds of work orders. So we're in the asset context right now. And now let's talk about the types of work orders. So by default, Clue assigns that repair type as the work order type. And what this does is it allows you to go back in history in the future and look at the different types of work that's been performed against an asset. So you have your preventative maintenance, very common auto triggering type of work order that Clue creates for you. And then you also have your repair types. You also have your proactive types. So your machine's still running, but you got to get in front of that thing. Or you've got like predictive maintenance where you're doing some analysis on the data and you're looking in Clue and you're saying, hey, I've got some fault codes that are coming up. It looks like I need to get on top of that. You can schedule this work accordingly in order to track that historically. So over time, you want to see that trend of what your assets are having work done against them. This is where your type comes into play. All right. Then there's another piece. I want to get into some of these other things that are on here. Another really important part of the components piece is the components piece. And what the components do is it gives you the ability to tag the work order to a specific type of work, right? So if you have like this overheating is right here in front of us, and there's all these different types of categorization for how to tag the work order. This stuff is reportable later, okay? And I want that to sink in for just a second. The components piece is one of those like hidden secrets that some people we don't realize that you can select. And so I see some companies struggle with, how do I use components? What does this mean? Well, the idea is if I tag a work order that's associated to an asset, this type of work, then I can go back and report against it very easily. And I can see how many times an asset has had this specific issue. I'll show you how this works here in just a second. So let's go ahead and create one end to end, and we'll get into some more details as to what some of these other things are. And I want to show you, first of all, right here from the work order screen, you can create a work order from this spot. But that's not where I actually want to do it, right? I want to show you a couple of other places where you can review information that's coming in from the field and create a work order that way. Because you're typically, if it's not preventative maintenance, you're probably getting flagged from the field that something has happened, right? So we see that most evidently under the asset health section and the inspection issues tab right up here at the top. So those of you that are performing daily inspections on your pieces, you all already know about this. But if you're not performing daily inspections, which you should be, this is where you'll see that information come in from the field whenever there's an issue. So you think about it this way. You got your operator out in the field performing that inspection. They flag something and say, oops, this is a failure. I've got a coolant hose that's broken that needs replaced. I'm leaking coolant. Well, that can come into the inspection issues screen automatically, and you can review that and you can create work orders very simply by clicking on it and then just using the create work order button right here. So if you're not familiar with this process, you've got your people out in the field that are submitting inspection issues or they're submitting repair requests also. And those things come directly into this inspection issues screen. Whenever I'm
Hey,
onboarding customers, one of the things that I try to encourage is that you have somebody or a group of somebodies that are keeping an eye on this. First of all, you get notifications whenever these items come in so that you can jump in and work on them really quickly. But if you have a manager, let's say, that needs to review those and schedule them out, get those work orders created, this is the screen to do it. It's your heads up display of issues that are coming in. You can click in. We can see that Derek reported this, got this repair request, and then we've got the location right here, right? So I can see a whole lot of information about this before I even create the work order. This is a great place to do that.
and
Another
Josh,
place,
what is the purpose of that acknowledge button there?
no, it's a great question. And that gets into a whole other story that I love to talk about. The acknowledge option engages your reporter, right? So if you think about it this way, you've got your equipment management group, right, that is taking care of these issues. And you have your operator or your superintendent out in the field that's reporting the thing. Well, we want to acknowledge it. Maybe we're not going to create the work order immediately. Maybe what we need to do is we need to go ahead and tell them, hey, we're going to fix this with the next DM, right? So whenever I acknowledge it, what this does is it sends a message back to the one that reported it and says, hey, this is what we're going to do with it. We've got some stock things that are in here that we can say, hey, this is why it's not getting done just yet. Or you can put in your own custom note and acknowledge it that way. But that goes back to the reporter and lets them know, hey, this is the status. We got you. And it's a great way to engage your people out in the field with a
Hmm.
live system, right? That's the power of it. Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
I can see how that would prevent somebody, the next day texting you and saying, "Hey, did you see that I reported a tire blown out?" Either, to CYA or to make sure that they're following through on something that was important. We got a good
Exactly.
question from Tony. Tony's wondering if you create a work order here, can it
Mhm.
automatically acknowledge and send that to the reporter or the person in the field who submitted that issue or request?
It does something better, actually. It lets them know that a work order was created. So instead of it just acknowledging it, it just funnels it on along. So what the acknowledgement button does is it gives you that ability to communicate to the user directly if you're not creating the work order. But if you go ahead and create the work order, then that reporter will get an acknowledgement saying, hey, we've created this. And then they're able to track the progression of the work order accordingly. Good question. Good question. Okay, so I want to show you one more way to create a work order, and then we're going to actually create it. So if I were to go in here and select an asset, I'm going to go find one really quickly. I actually want to use this asset. We're going to look it up in the asset directory, DT103. Got this little Peterbilt guy, and been hearing some stuff from out in the field. I haven't trained my guys on how to do inspections yet. That's on my to-do list, so I need to get on it. But I'm going to create a work order because I got a call. And I'm going to go up here to the three dot button under the asset and create this work order right here, right? So right from the asset slide out, that asset slide out, it's all over Clue. You click on that asset name, brings the slide out, three dot button, create work order. When I do this, it's going to go ahead and bring over the asset and associate it, and it's going to pre-fill some information. You may have noticed I've got my project that the asset is currently assigned to. It comes into the work order. So if I have that asset assigned someplace out in the field, that association comes directly to the work order automatically, right? So I'm going to go ahead and put in a little bit of information here on what it is that needs to happen. I need to get my work order title in. So we're going to go ahead and put this in as coolant level is dropping quickly. That's what I'm hearing from the guy. And then I'm going to go in and I'm put in a description here. It looks like appears to have a coolant leak. So I put in my just brief statement. Then I'm going to jump in and I'm going to say the truck, ooh, I can't type, truck is overheating. Please investigate and repair. All right. So I want more detail down here. And the more detail I put in, the more helpful Clue's going to be to helping me log this information. You saw right here, I got suggested components that popped up, right? Remember, components, that's that kind of hidden secret within Clue that helps you track this stuff. Our AI engine looked at what was being typed in and said, hey, let's get this tagged. So let's go ahead and tag a couple of these. We've got our coolant loss, got our coolant leak. Maybe there's a seal and gasket failure. I don't know. I'm going to go ahead and remove that one because I'm not 100% certain. Probably is, but not certain. I've got maybe a thermostat failure. Maybe I could add that later if I want, or I could keep it. Either way, I'm going to take it off, but I definitely know the thing is overheating. So here's 3 components really quickly to help me categorize very fast, right? And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and submit this work order. Oh, actually, no, I want to schedule it, right? Because that's what I just did is exactly what happens to a lot of you guys and gals that are out there is you're so busy trying to get this thing done and get it scheduled out that, or get it assigned that we don't actually schedule it, right? And that scheduling part is actually really critical to tracking the performance of your team. So if you have a schedule and you set your due date, this is going to say, hey, I need this thing to be done no later than Friday next week. It's got to be done, right? Now, on a coolant leak that's overheating on a truck, we're probably doing it today or tomorrow. We can get that out there to keep that thing on the road, especially if it's mission critical, right? But I'm going to go ahead and say by Friday next week, I think that thing, whatever's happening, it's going to be okay. And then I can say I'm going to start work on Monday. Excuse me, I'm going to start work on Tuesday. I'm going to give them until Friday to get it done, right? Now that due date is different than the scheduled time frame, right? The scheduled time frame gives you an allocation on the scheduler that says, here's the duration that you have to get it done. Whereas the due date is what the system uses to say, hey, it's got to be done by this day or it's overdue, right? And so Clue will log that and track that for you, and it will log it as an overdue item if we go past that due date. Really important to know that difference there. A couple other really quick things as that we can look at when we're creating this work order. This guy's got a powertrain warranty on it. I can click on this here and I can see the warranty that's associated with it, right? So if I could say, hey, could this thing be under warranty? Maybe, maybe not. But if it were, then I could sub it out to a third-party shop, right? I could send it over to the Carter dealership. Really easy to do. I can also assign, a mechanic. And we're going to pick Mike. Let's get Mike Nico on this one. So we got Mike. Ooh, I didn't save it, did I? Apply. So I've got Mike assigned to it. If this were a project work order and I needed to assign it to a certain phase, then I could do that there. Got my components already on here. If I had a related issue coming in from the field, this is where that would get created or associated. I'm going to go ahead and submit it. And then I'm going to click into it. Let's view that work order. Okay, so we already kind of talked about that scheduling, the due dates versus the scheduled dates. Really important if you're really going to do scheduling. So I want to jump into just kind of talking about the work order itself. Kind of looking from the top, we see our work order types right here. We got our priority. The priority itself, if your team agrees on what's high, medium, and low priorities, use it, right? That's a great way to understand what those things should be. What I see a lot of teams do is their managers will be the ones that will prioritize this. So there's clarity on these are the most important things that need to be done. And then in the context of your scheduled dates, now your mechanics have something that they know that they can, how to prioritize their work. Here's our schedule. We already assigned that, right? Over here on the right, we've got our mechanic that's assigned to it, the asset. We've got the asset details whenever the work order was created. Here are the meter hour and the odometer that's associated with it. Our warranty information. Once again, I can click on it, see the little slide out, show me what's there. And then I've got my description here. I can see attachments, which we'll talk about here in a little bit. I can see my total cost on the work order. We've got this piece. And just FYI, if you're like, hey, I don't see that on mine, talk to us. We can get that turned on for you. There's some things we want to set up with you so you can use that well. And we'll do that. All right. And then we've got down here our tasks section. And this is where I want to spend a little bit of time talking about it. So our tasks, what this does is it allows you to add individual pieces of work that need to be done for this thing to get taken care of. So for instance, let's create a new task and let's say we're going to investigate the overheating. Don't know what it is, but we're going to do an investigation on it. We're going to create that task. And then I'm going to do another task and I'm going to just say repair the problem. And we'll go in and create the task.
So Josh, here we're creating separate checklists. I have some customers call it, right? Checklists for tasks. Can we assign different checklists, like different task items to different individuals? For example, I got an oil change specialist or a radiator specialist that can just do one part of the work order, or maybe that's all they do all day, every day.
Yeah, you certainly can. And that's the value of the task. Thanks for bringing that up, Nick. Super helpful. So right here, I can come in and I can assign the mechanic directly. So if I want Mike to be the one that does the initial triage of the work, then I can select him,
Hmm.
right? But then if I want, let's say, who else do we have in here? If I want Brett to be the guy that's doing the actual repair work, because he's the specialist on coolant stuff, then I can assign it accordingly there. So it's a great point that you bring up, Nick, because one of the other ways that I see this is on preventative maintenance work orders. So I'm going to come back to this for in just a second, but I want to show you, if I go look up, let's see, PV 108, and take a look at this PM plan that I have. I've brought in this preventative maintenance piece, and we're scooping and scooping a little longer. All right.
While it's loading, Josh, when you assign a task to a specific mechanic or a servicer, is it possible maybe that there's one task item that is outsourced? For example, we've got a work order for, I don't know, a large overhaul, and a piece of that is covered by a warranty, or a piece of that we outsource to a specialist because we have internal mechanics who do maybe more quick fixes or faster work.
Was it? I'm sorry, did I miss the question there, Nick, specifically?
So can you assign it to like external mechanics or third-party servicers? Like
Oh,
specific
yeah.
tasks within a work
Yeah,
order?
absolutely. Yeah. And so if we go into this section here, so this is the point I wanted to make. I've got my different PMs that are set up, right? This paver needs some work, right? And let's say the 2,000 hour service is something that I typically sub out. Then when I select my mechanic, I've got this vendor tab, right? So
Mm,
I'm going to sub out just the 2K work, right? So I'll come over to my vendor and we're going to say that, let's see, um, we're going to have Carter do this work for me, right? And I'm just going to submit that. Now Carter is, select my task type. It's going to be PM. We'll sub out that work specifically to Carter to do that specific piece. But then maybe poor Mike, he's got a lot of work coming up on his plate. Mike's the guy that does the 1Ks for us. Or maybe it's we're going to just sub it all out to the entire all the work to the vendor itself. Then you can do that as well, right?
gotcha. And then when the vendor sends us maybe the invoice for that work,
Mhm.
are we able to attach that to this work order?
Of course we are. Yeah. So what we can do is just simply come down here and create a new invoice. And we can also use our AI invoice to upload it and bring that information in really quickly. Really
Perfect.
powerful, right? So let's actually do some of that. I want to go back to our other work order really quickly. So I'm going to go to DT103 once more. We'll go into this coolant level as dropping item. We've got our two tasks that have been created. And I want to did some investigation. I realized it's definitely a coolant leak. The hose and the hose bead is messed up, right? So I've got two sections. I've got internal parts and external parts. I'm going to go to my add part on internals. I'm just going to do a really quick look here. So we're going to do, let's look up coolant hose. Do I have a coolant hose in my inventory? I don't. Okay. What about that coolant hose bead? I do have a hose bead. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and bring this in. I know I need this piece for the repair. So I'm going to bring that in. Got my quantity. I got my cost. I'm going to go ahead and save this. Oh, real quickly, parts for just a second. There's a status here that says requested. We can set this up for your companies however you need. But if you want to use our parts order flow, then what you do, you have your mechanics put it in a requested status. And that gives your parts team the ability to see, hey, we got a request that comes in. They can fulfill it. Mechanic can go pick it up from the parts counter, or it can be delivered to where the mechanic needs it to go. Or if the mechanic has the authority to just go in and grab it off the shelf, then we can just set it as used. And the default for those can be set per company, right? So you don't have to like worry too much about that if you want them to go down the request path. So I'm going to go ahead and add this part to the work order. And it's got $22 on it. And I'm going to scroll back up here, and now I've got parts amount that are coming up, right? So then on the, I'm as the guy that knows the parts that need to be done, I saw the hose bead was available, but the hose itself wasn't. So I'm gonna have to go to a third party to get it, right? So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go and I'm gonna pick it up, and I got it. I've got my invoice for it. So coming back to your invoice question, Nick, got my invoice for it. I paid for it at the cat dealership. It's all there. I'm going to use my little AI invoice tool. I'm going to browse out to it. And let's see here. I've got it sitting right in here. When I bring this in, I'm gonna hit this AI invoice button. It's going to take a little moment. It's going to send it up to our server. It's going to look at the image, PDF, PNG, JPEG. It's going to come into the system. And what we're going to try to do is we're going to try to tell you who the vendor was, the invoice number, the part number, and I've got my hose assembly in here, and here's my cost. So I'm going to go ahead and import this in. And so this is the value of your internal parts and your external parts, and you'll see that it also pulled my invoice in. It got all that consolidated right together. And so if I scroll back up here to the top, I can see my parts dollars are incrementing upward, and I've got my internal, my external cost associated to that. Does that make sense, Nick, how that worked?
Yeah, that was good. I saw that it auto added that part to the external when it recognized that it was a parts PO.
Yeah, that's
Uh,
exactly what happened. Mhm.
I had a customer last week ask what's the value of tracking internal versus external parts. Obviously, besides being able to see how much you spend on, external shopping or an
Yeah.
internal inventory, but they're used to just having one inventory for any parts to manage.
So the value there is basically, are you going to, well, what we just did is one huge value is the ability to like take that invoice and upload it. So if that's one of the functions that your mechanics typically do, or even you do internally, uploading that, we can tag it to that external part. But if you're using the internal part and you run it through our parts and order flow, then you can track whether or not your parts team is managing that order and getting that fulfilled versus something that your mechanic is doing. So we have two very distinct flows for managing internal versus external parts, and
Mm.
who's managing the provisioning of the part, if you will. Does that make
Gotcha.
sense?
So if one of my field techs goes out, this was I think the question when we talked through it. If one of my field techs goes out and he just runs to the Napa Auto Parts or
Yeah.
the O'Reilly down the road, buys something off the shelf and then brings that back, where would most companies like to track that here?
So they put that on the external parts piece,
Okay.
right? So we're gonna put that on an external parts piece because it's not from inventory. Came from a third party, came from outside my inventory. So I'm gonna put that either on my external parts list, or I'm gonna take the invoice receipt, whatever the case may be, use it on the AI uploader, and it will automatically associate it accordingly, like we saw here.
There you go. So internal parts are pulling from our internal inventory. If
Yes,
we don't
yes.
have an internal inventory, then everything would come from external parts.
Right. One distinction I want to make here, because inventory scares a lot of people, right? Because it's a whole business of managing your parts, right?
Yeah.
And I'm seeing people that are in this meeting right now that know exactly what I'm talking about. They have shops that do nothing but do parts management, right? Inventory, you can track it in Clue, but you can also just have a raw parts list that you're pulling from as well. If you typically have parts that you regularly use, we can store that as well. And inventory itself, uh, you should do it if you can, right? But don't get hung up on inventory. It can be just a parts list that you're pulling from too, right? Okay.
Perfect.
All right. So I want to jump into labor and time cards because that's another major cost component. You notice what we're doing, we're hitting the cost components, right? So we put parts in there. For our labor, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to come up here to the top and I'm going to create a new time card. And let's go ahead and in this case, I'm going to be Mike's manager. So I'm putting in time for Mike directly. And it's going to be today's date. Let's say that he spent an hour actually doing the primary work on this. And let's do 2 hours. I want to see a little bit of a differentiator here. And we'll go ahead and we'll submit this. Once I have that, the labor costs associated or the hours associated, you see my labor costs started calculating. And then once again, I come up here to the top. Now I've got parts, I got my labor, I've got my total cost. So you can
Wow.
see very quickly that this is aggregating. Go ahead, Nick.
And so, where does it pull the cost for those hours, those 2 hours of Mike?
Yeah. So we have a couple of different ways that we go about it, but the primary function is you've got your pay class that gets associated to the user directly, and that pay class is driven by cost per hour, and you can set that up actually down here under company settings, and I believe we're under configuration and pay class. Fairly new feature, just for the record. So I can set up my different pay classes here. And then under my people, if I go to, let's say, Mike, I can see that my pay class is unavailable. So sorry. This is where I can select my pay class and I can choose what the pay class should be for that individual user. All right.
Gotcha.
Make sense?
So this is where we might put like union labor costs
Uh,
as a pay class.
Yeah, you could put that in there. Yeah, it's going to be your unit cost for the type of work that the person is doing. And then we're also actually building a feature right now to allow you to switch the different pay class associations on the work order itself, so that if you have different types of pay classes for different unit costs that you need to capture per hour, that you can switch that around as well.
There
So,
we go.
great questions. All right, so one more thing on the work order, and then we're getting pretty close to Q&A time, so keep the questions coming, right? A couple of things I want to show you on the work order very quickly. You can very easily add attachments. So if you're in your system here and you've got your pictures of your coolant hose that busted and the parts, you can just grab them and attach them. So now I've got the history, you can see that over time, and I've got that all loaded in there. One other big thing on this screen that's worth talking about is the status. So what you'll see that I haven't really changed the status because I wanted to talk about it uniquely. So if I click on the status, I can see this is in scheduled condition. So in theory, Mike should have changed this into in progress whenever he started doing the work, right? And then maybe he needed to wait on parts, so he could have changed it to a waiting on parts. And then after he finished waiting on parts, then he could put it back in progress. And then when he's done, he finished it, right? The status list here, this is customizable per company, as is also the work order type. We can customize those for you. So as you're thinking about how you want to categorize things, these are things that we can adjust for you in our conversations, right? So let us know if that's something that we can help you adjust.
Great. Josh, I saw completed and closed. What would be
Yeah.
the difference that a company might have finished, completed, and closed?
Yeah, great question. So this has to do more with review and approval processes, and we see it most commonly with companies that are connected via ERP. So if we're going to take our cost information on the work order and we want all of this stuff to get sent over to ERP and we want it to be officially closed out, then we would use, say, the closed status. So a mechanic might put it into completed status and they're authorized to do that. But we limit and restrict the closed status to be management. So if you have a manager that's doing your reviews and making sure everything's coded correctly, making sure we got all the dollars right, and then we want to go ahead and fire off to both Clue and the ERP to say this thing is finally closed out, then that would be the difference. And we can permission gate those, right? So only the manager can move it into closed status. The mechanic can only put it into completed.
There you go. So the closed is closing out the work order and all associated costs and then pushing that to the ERP.
Mhm. Yes.
Perfect.
Yep.
We
Yep.
had a couple questions come in
Okay.
that I think
Yeah.
are relevant to the parts section.
Let's do
Uh,
it.
the first one, and I think we kind of showed this, but I want to make sure. Rachel, great question around whether or not Clue can automatically pull cost data from parts and or labor. I don't know if you saw, but Josh, can you add an internal part so that
Sure.
just any part so we can see where the cost data comes in? I believe, Rachel, that you're asking if I have to manually type how much this oil filter costs me every time I add it.
Do we have an oil filter in here?
Uh,
Sure, we have an oil filter in here. Let's see. Yeah, we got this guy.
and you'll
And
see right there that the cost got pulled in automatically. So if the part exists in inventory, it has a cost associated with it. Just like if the labor is assigned a pay class, those dollars and cents are automatically attached to it. And I believe, Josh, we can categorize or split labor costs by individual in case there's maybe a senior technician who,
yeah,
has been around longer rather than
of
just an
course.
individual pay class.
Yeah. So that pay class setup that I went to under the company settings and configuration, you can set up as many of those as you need. And then you can also assign a default one to the user. And then on this screen, we can expose the ability for you to switch the pay classes around if you need to. So, yeah.
Perfect. And then the other question that I think is just a quick answer from Justin. Justin's asking if the workflow for adding a part in the mobile app works the same,
It does.
and the AI feature, the AI absorption of the part. So I think, Justin, I'm guessing you're asking if like within a work order on the mobile app, you can do the invoice upload. Like for example, if I take a picture of my receipt from Napa Auto Parts and that the part is pulled into the external section.
So that's a great question, Justin. Let me call you on the side and see. I know we've been building that information out. I'm not 100% certain. Complete transparency. So I got to go check.
Cool. I think that that would pull into the parts section for simplicity on the mobile app, and then you can edit it here on the desktop dashboard at a later point either way, Justin. So
Yep.
if we need
Yep.
to move a
That's
part
for sure.
from internal to external or it populates in the wrong place, like external to internal, we can.
Mhm. Good
Great
question,
question.
Justin. Yeah. And he's never going to let me live down the fact that he stumped me. So, but,
Justin is a hoot. Um, well, while we have a little over 5 minutes left, I want to make sure we answer the rest of the questions, or if there was anything else, Josh, that you wanted to focus on, or we can keep it going with questions.
the only other thing that I think is really important to see is some of the reporting. We've done most of the entering. Keep entry questions coming, but I do want to show you a couple of quick things, okay? So on the work order screen, we just went back over here to the work order section under the maintenance. So I'm seeing my full list. If I wanted to just go look at DT103 real quickly, let's see. That's the one that I've been doing the work on. I can see that I've got quite a few work orders that have gone over, that have been performed over time. I can scroll over to the right and see the status. I can go even further over and I can see my cost information. Something about this view that you may not know is you can take these columns and move them around. So you can order these however you want to. You can also turn on and off columns right here, just using these little switches, and then you can move things up and down and get them ordered from this view as well. You can download this to Excel by using this little download button. So all that stuff, great, fun stuff. But let's talk about one filtering component that's really powerful. So you remember we added the coolant leaks and the coolant stuff as components. If I go under filters and I go to my component section, let's say, okay, DT 103, how many times has it had coolant loss or coolant leak? Got a couple of times historically, right?
So
So now I'm able to go
Dale,
back and see that
Dale's actually
history.
asking this exact question right now.
Oh,
Dale, I
okay.
don't know if you saw that, but we're pulling a filter to see how many times in this particular case we've used this specific component repair.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And this allows you to see that history over time, right? So using the components, again, one of those hidden secrets. If you use those components and you get your teams used to using them, it really amplifies the power of your reporting this way. Yeah. A couple other things that come up sometimes. Can we do custom reports off of this data? I want to see it this way. I want to track how many times a certain thing has failed on a piece. We already have that here. I want to see which mechanics are performing better than others based upon their assignment and the amount of time that it takes for them to complete a certain type of work or a certain type of work order. I want to see trends over time. I want to see KPIs and kind of compare mechanic to mechanic. We can do those things, right? So talk to us about the type of reporting that you're looking for, and we can help you get that data out of the system.
We got a couple more questions, but I want to make sure if you had anything else you wanted to add.
Only other thing I wanted to show today for sure is that if you got some favorite work orders that you always want to see, we've got this new little star function for the favorite piece. And then under the filters, I know you all love filters, right? It's a really powerful way to sort the data. But you scroll down to the bottom of the filter section, you can view your favorite work orders only. Just turn that on, right? And then that'll sort the list just to your favorites. Yeah, that's really the gist of what I wanted to make sure we talked through today. So yeah, let's do some questions, Nick.
Yeah. So one of these is a little bit going backwards, but what's the best way to record a PM that was done by an external vendor, an outside repair, outside business, to
Yeah.
ensure that it resets the PM?
Oh yeah, that's a really good question. So what you want to do, let's find a PM work order really quickly. So I'm gonna get my filter changed. Let's clear it up, and let's go to my work order types. Let's click my preventative maintenance, right? So we'll go in. Let's grab let's do this $500 service. All right, so question being, how do I make sure that I got my vendor associated to it, and then how do I make sure that I backdate the actual PM work itself? So two things. One, make sure you got your assignee set as the vendor, right? So we can do that by editing, changing the assignee, making sure the vendor is the right vendor. I'm just going to pick somebody here. And then the other thing that you can do is whenever you are completing the work itself, the work at this point in time, you see this meter readings at completion. So if I go in and I modify or close out the work order, so I'm going to go ahead and complete the work order right here. Let's confirm it. So I can come in and I can edit the meters at completion right here. So I can come in and set the meters at completion and save that. This is what logs against the work order set to say that the meter reading has been is updated at this point in time, so that when the work order is closed, it actually goes back and it updates that information accordingly on the preventative maintenance screen. Now, another thing, though, that's important is sometimes you'll forget that, oh, hey, hold on a second, I already completed it. What you can do at that point in time is you can actually just click on the asset to get the slide out, go to the three dot button and down to PMs, and you can modify the last performed date and information here. So if you've already closed out the work order and you forgot to go back and modify it, this is where you do it. You just come in here, you hit the little edit button next to the service that needs to be reset for, and then you just adjust the meter hour and the date, save it, and you're good.
Great. We have a couple more, but I see we're at time, so I think one of these is a rapid fire one that can
Okay.
probably can be settled pretty quickly.
All right.
Um, are there work order status settings that will affect the tasks within the work order? So, for example, somebody changes the work order status to finished, that it can automatically change the task status to completed.
I see what you're saying. So when those are distinct items, I believe that we have the ability to close all tasks whenever you close a work order. Pretty sure we can do that.
Yeah.
Mm,
Yeah, I
yeah.
thought that was a good one. If we
Yep.
didn't get around to your questions, like I see some questions in here around purchase orders and how to go back and edit invoices. Jamie, great questions. We'll send you guys the private answers to these questions in a follow-up. Maddie, do you want to
Yeah.
close us out with the last 30
Yeah.
seconds?
Absolutely. Y'all know where to find Josh and his hair. But thank you guys so much, Josh and Nick. This was amazing. Another successful Clue Thursday. Next week we're going to be covering preventative maintenance. Nick, I think you'll be co-hosting that one as well. So it's going to be great. Also, most important thing I can't leave y'all with, if you have not purchased your tickets for Fleet Forward in January, early bird pricing ends on Monday. I'm here in Arizona. The weather's only getting better. You can see Josh and Nick and get them to answer all your questions live and in the flesh. So we're really excited to see all of you guys um, in January. But with that being said, thank you again for joining, and we'll see y'all next week.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank
Bye,
you,
guys.
everyone.